Wonderful. Welcome. Good morning. Again, if you're just joining, we're giving it a few minutes to make sure everyone who wants to join today can. And just to get started, we have some updates, some things to go through, some housekeeping as well. So we'll cover that today. Just kind of setting a new cadence for these trainings moving forward and today. And yeah, we're just going to give it a few more minutes to make sure everyone who wants to join today can. And just so everyone knows they're in the right spot, this is the Drupal 10 training and support. This specific training is for our newer users who are new to the platform. So we're just going to let in people as they come in. Good morning, Paula. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
And we're just going to give it a couple more minutes to make sure everyone who wants to join today can. And just one more time, a refresher. This is the basic training for the Drupal 10 platform. If you're looking for the open forum Q&A, that's going to be on the 28th. But this is going to be more like the standard lecture style training today. And I'm just going to give it another minute, but I think this might be our group for today. Yes, Paula?
So is there also going to be a calendar invite for the 28th or?
You should have received it, Duncan. If you can forward that to Paula or just send her the link to wherever it's hosted, so that she can get access to that, that would be fabulous.
I'm pretty sure this is a reoccurring event and it's linked up on our CMS training site, Paula.
I'll look on
From
your site and then add it to my calendar.
Okay, perfect.
okay.
And it should
You
be
must
set up
have
so that
missed
you,
it.
okay, no worries. And it should be set up so that you can add it to any calendar solution as well.
And
Wonderful.
and
Thank
and
you so
and the
much.
next one, just as a reminder, will be next month, right? In May too. So you might have
Yes.
to scroll a little forward in your calendar to see the
Mm-hmm.
next one if it did come through.
Yes.
So
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and the next batch of these will be May. So the next scheduled basic training is going to be May 14th. All right, I'm just going to assume this is our group for today. If anyone new steps in, we'll be sure to join them. Give me a big thumbs up if you can see my screen. It should be that PowerPoint that says Drupal 10 training and support. Awesome, so good to see. Perfect. So let's go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, we are going to be using the PowerPoint today. I've made some additions, some changes. And as folks come in, we'll just be letting them in. But just to get started, our general housekeeping for today. We have two CMS websites. We'll briefly touch on them today. That first link in that CMS website is the regular old cms.colorado.gov. Duncan, if you could dump these two links into the chat for everybody, that would be super helpful. That CMS website is going to be more or less a resource for our projects for SIPA as well. So this is not going to contain so much of the training information that it used to. It's really only going to contain just information about where to find support for your active project, where to find support for your closed project, and in addition, the different solutions that SIPA provides, and also accessibility resources, mainly links to OIT's resource site. However, it's there for ease of use and includes our VPAT as well. The CMS training website has updated guides, so that means updated video tutorials, updated step-by-step written tutorials, and everything is sectioned out within modules. We'll take a look at that today, but just to let you know that there are two unique resource websites now. And the new training website has updated content. So I know that's been a big ask for a while. So this is going to be updated for Drupal 10 and no longer uses the screenshots and resources from Drupal 9. And a quick note, this session will be recorded and made available. So starting with this particular session, these will become available online once more. These should be uploaded by the end of the week of the training. So that would be this Friday. We would expect to see this on the YouTube channel and on the CMS training website and CMS website. And I wanted to go over our new training schedule. So this is going to look a little bit different. This is going to be our basic lecture style training. This is just going to go through the bones of the website. This is intended for new users. We do have that Q&A open forum style training, just like this. Less training, more or less for our VIP users or more advanced users who have, maybe some trickier questions that need a little bit more dedicated time. That will be hosted on April, I apologize, on, oops, I am all the way in June. Backing it up, that will be hosted on April 23rd. So if you are an advanced user looking for that kind of support, I would highly encourage you attend that April 23rd meeting. However, if you're just looking to get refreshed on some of the basics of Drupal, feel free to stick around. However, these cadences have changed. So if you do need that extra support for something a little bit more complex on your site, please absolutely visit that April 23rd meeting. Duncan should be placing in the chat the links to get that added to your calendar. But yes, hopefully there's not any questions about that, and we'll be sure to touch on those sites today so that you can see what they look like. Moving on, this is the agenda. The agenda has not changed. We're going to be looking at the authenticated user view, the content module. Inside that content module, we're going to be looking at basic pages, landing pages, and layouts. So we're going to be spending some time in layouts today, but we're kind of pulling back a little to look at basic pages and landing pages for newer users. We are also going to be looking at media. So that's going to be adding PDFs and images to the media and editing from the web browser view. I like to think of these as little shortcuts. So you'll find lots of spots where you'll be able to just shortcut your way to a lot of this content. So you don't have to dig through the back end of the site if you're not so familiar with that. And I think we could go ahead and get started. So I'm going to switch gears here. Excuse me. Alrighty. So go ahead and give me a thumbs up when you can see my CMS training website. Awesome, perfect. So this is the brand new and improved training resource website. Inside of the site, you're going to find those written instructions, those video instructions, platform updates, FAQs, how to contact us, accessibility as well, and even how to get new projects started. So this is definitely a labor of love, something we've been working on for the past year almost. So definitely take advantage of this being around. This has updated materials in it. So those step-by-step tutorials that were using content from Drupal 9 aren't there anymore. Everything's updated for Drupal 10 and the most recent versions of Drupal 10. So please go ahead and review this site. And one thing I really wanted to point out here is that everything is now separated in modules. So if you have signed into your site and you're looking at your toolbar, you'll notice that the buttons that you see are content, structure, people, and configuration. So we decided that the best way to organize the tutorials on this site is to go by module. So that way everything lines up nice and neat for the things that you'll probably most likely be using on your site. So please take advantage of this being around. And of course, this is a new resource we're presenting to y'all. So we want to hear your feedback about it. That feedback you can submit to partner support. It's this little red button down here or this email link right here as well. Review it. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if it's missing anything or if there's anything in particular that, you remember being on the old CMS site, want to see it on the new one. Absolutely. This doesn't mean that the old CMS site has gone away. It just has significantly less content on it now as it's all been migrated. This older CMS site is going to be more or less aligned with the platform itself and being a resource for active projects, closed projects, and initiating new ones as well. This is going to contain platform release notes, and in this Drupal 10 training and support, you will see that those recorded trainings have resumed and will be hosted on the same page right here. This should also be the spot where you can find these links. So you can see that the 9th, this is the Drupal 10 website training and support. Remember, this is the basic training for new users. This is going to be a lecture style. You're more than welcome to put questions in the chat. However, if you are a more advanced user, I highly encourage you attend this open forum and present questions there as well, as that is the intended space for more advanced users. So definitely take a look at this guy and just let us know your feedback on it as well. You know, these are new things, so we definitely want to hear everyone's opinion on it. But perfect. That's really the last thing I wanted to discuss about these websites. Any general questions about these new resources? Nope. Fabulous. So let's get started. So when we talk about an authenticated view on a website, and I'm just going to pick on my demo site today, we are talking about these buttons up here, this toolbar in and of itself, and these editing tools that are kind of stuck on these pages as well. You'll also notice when you hover over certain spots on the site, you're going to see this pencil icon. So this is also what we would call the web editing tools. This is just shortcuts to edit these things directly versus kind of digging in your modules up here. So we'll talk a little bit about that. However, you know, if none of this looks right and you need additional assistance with your permissions, please submit a partner support ticket so that we can help you gain access to all of these tools. But now that we've kind of seen what this authenticated user view looks like, I want to talk about the anatomy of the site. This is going to be some glossary terms, just putting faces to names. So starting from the tippy top, this is going to be our editing tools. These are those modules, excuse me. And if you remember, our training website is organized by module. So we see our content, our structure, our configuration, and people. I'm going to have a few extra buttons than y'all just because I will have a higher level of admin status. So don't worry if it doesn't look exactly like this. You should at the very least have content, structure, and configuration. People if you're managing users on your site. Underneath our toolbar, this is really where the start of the public view of the page comes in here, where a public user is not going to see these toolbars. However, they are going to see this blue bar right here. This is an alert. This is an optional content piece. It will follow you no matter what page you navigate to, and it's just a good way to put a little blurb at the very top of your page. Underneath our alert, we are kind of getting into our website sandwich. I like to think of it as a sandwich sometimes, where we have our header. We can kind of consider these structural pieces, right? These are the bones of our website. In our header, we're going to have, this is a utility nav. This is an optional menu that just allows you to have some extra buttons at the top of your site. You have Google Translate already built into all of our sites. We will update this for you if it ever needs to be updated. Underneath, we have a search bar. So content on your site is searchable. This is powered by Google, which means it uses, you know, an SEO to organize this content and to push things up. So it's going to pull from the title of the content. It's going to pull from words inside of it. So if it's a page and it has words on those pages, it's going to use that as a search tool. You can additionally add meta tags, descriptions, additional context to any piece of content to make these things easier to find. And Google will automatically snap that up and use it as part of its SEO. So it is automatic. It indexes automatically. It does take a few days to index. So if you do make a change to the site, it's not going to reflect right away within the search. It's going to take a few days for that indexing to catch up because it is an automated process. So just be patient with it. If you have removed a file off of your site, if you've removed a page off your site and it still pulls up a search result, it won't lead anyone anywhere. It'll give them a page not found link. However, because it is Google, an external resource, it may take a couple of days for that indexing to complete. Off to the left, we have our home button and logo. So if you have a logo you'd like to use on your site, please send it our way. We will upload it for you. This also functions as a home button, which means that if you're on the home page and click it, it'll refresh your page. Or if you're on another page of the site, it'll take you back to your home page. Keep in mind that your logo's height maximum is 85 pixels. So I would prioritize your logo being long versus tall in this instance, or else you're going to get a teeny tiny logo. So definitely when you're sending them over, keep in mind that if they are any big than 85 pixels, they're going to be sized down to fit that space. So it's going to be smaller. And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat just so everyone has it. But yes, definitely seen some questions come through lately about logo spacing and sizing. So I hope that's helpful for the group. Wonderful. And underneath our search and our home button, we have our main navigation. This one's going to look a little funky because this is our demo site. We like to pick on this site. However, we can kind of consider this to be our hot bar. So anything that has the most visited pages, or if you have a smaller site, you can even put all of your pages in here. Keep in mind that while there really isn't a technical limit to how many pages you can put as parent links, and parent links just mean these front and center guys. So when we click on these carrots, these are child links because they live under the parent links, right? So these parent links, you don't necessarily have a limit to how many you can add. However, you will get to the point where you will have links stacked on top of one another, and that can be a little problematic for the site. So just be mindful and condense where you can. Put them as child links where you can, just so you can kind of control how much space you can utilize here. In addition to that, you can change the color of your main navigation. So if you don't feel the blue, you don't like the blue, this lives on our CMS training site. It's going to live under frequently asked questions, website theme colors. You can choose any color except for these 50% colors. This is just to layer content on top of one another within a row so that, you can have depth to these colors. However, anything else is fair game. So if you do have any changes that you would like made when it comes to these aesthetics, like these colors, absolutely send in a partner support ticket. It's like a 2-minute fix. You can even give us a list of colors and we will screenshot them and send you all of the different options and you can decide from there as well. So it does not take us a long time to do. So please, if you have multiple that you want to try out, send them over. We will do so. Perfect. And underneath our main navigation is another optional content piece. This is exclusive to the landing page. For a lot of you guys, your only landing page is going to be your home page. This is called the Jumbotron, and the name kind of gives it away. It is just a big space to present an image. These image dimensions, much like your logo, are also very specific. So when you are getting your Jumbotron set up, you want to make sure that it is 450 pixels in height by 2115 pixels long. So just a long rectangle kind of laying on its side. And I will also put that in the chat for y'all. You can have multiple slides, and these automatically slide, I believe it's 6-second intervals. You can manually move through them, or you can pause it entirely. So a user who experiences eye strain or vertigo and cannot, tolerate the Jumbotron, they can easily pause it by clicking that pause button right there. So that's our top bun of our site sandwich. This is the header of our site. Now we can kind of get into the meat of our site. This is going to be our rows and our cards. So there's lots of different ways we can think of rows and cards. We can also think of cards and columns as synonymous. So we can say rows and columns. So rows are the horizontal space that we're taking up for our site, and columns are the vertical space that we're taking up for our site, right? And we can even kind of compartmentalize further and think of this like a tic-tac-toe board. Or additionally, if you want to picture something in your head, we can also picture it like a bookshelf. There's lots of different ways that we can kind of consider the content on this site. So this is row number 1. And we know because we have this white space that separates them. And we've also done y'all a favor, and in our demo site, color coordinated the rows so we can see where these rows kind of move away from each other. And inside of our row, this top row right here, we have this white space. Hopefully you can see, especially when I highlight everything. This indicates unique columns. So there's 1, 2, 3 columns on this particular row. And you can stack and stack and stack and stack until you're happy with the content that is on your site. All of these rows are equal column rows. Equal columns means that no matter how many columns I put on my site, the space, the cards inside of them are going to take up the same amount of space, right? So this is card number 1, card number 2, and card number 3. And you can see even though the height may be a little bit different, the width is always the same. Same thing underneath. This is another equal columns. However, there's only 2 columns here. So it's going to take up a half each instead of a third each. So on and so forth. So if you were to have 4 cards on one singular row, these are going to split into fourths. Perfect. And if you were to have just one, so this is a map card in a single column on an equal row, it's going to take up the entire row. Perfect. And moving on, so that is the meat of our site sandwich. Now we want to go look at the bottom bun of our site sandwich. This is the footer. Every site comes with 2 footers. You can edit one of them. This is the customizable footer. When you hover over your footer, you should see a pencil icon that'll appear in the upper right-hand corner. Clicking on that, you can edit the footer. You can also remove the block. Removing the block does not delete the content permanently off the site. It's just going to take it away. So you can opt not to have the custom footer if you don't need one. However, you can edit directly from here to edit your custom footer. And spoiler alert, these function just like the site. So this uses rows and cards or columns as well. And your next footer is going to be our global universal footer. So that essentially means that this is going to be on every page of your site. It cannot be removed and you cannot edit it if a change does need to be made. So if the year turns over and we need to update it to 2026, we will do that for you. If these links need to be updated, we will also do that for you. Typically, that is a legislated item. However, if something else comes down where we are required to make any changes, we don't expect you to make those changes. We will make them for you. And much like your menu, you can also change the color of your footer, and that is the same list of colors right here. So if you do not dig the gray footer, you can absolutely update it to any of those colors as well. Any questions about site anatomy in the authenticated view? So far, so good? Fabulous. So we're going to start looking at actual content. And how I like to train my partners is that I always like to have them upload their documents and images first. So if you are looking to overhaul a site, make a big change, update anything on a page, and that includes adding an image or a document, always best practice to put that in your media library first. How do we get to our media library? Well, we're going to click on our content module up here, and we're just going to click directly on it. It will take you then to the content library. This isn't where your PDFs or images are going to live, but this is where all of your pages, layouts, articles, events, all of those unique things are going to be here instead. We have one more step to get to our media library, and it's when we look at these tabs at the top of our page, we're going to be looking for media specifically. And when I click on that media tab, it's going to take us to our media library. So this is a separate library from our content library. Excuse me. And when we're ready to add, we're going to click that add media button. You'll see 4 options. Only 2 are really available to you. Video and video uploads are legacy, so we do not have the capacity to host streamable videos on 500 sites. So we do ask if you have a video to add to your website, upload it to YouTube and then embed it onto a page. We wouldn't have time to talk about how to do that today. However, if you do want to meet for a specific crash course on how to do that, feel free to send a ticket through partner support, and we're more than happy to schedule something to look at what that looks like for y'all. However, let's just go ahead and start with documents. And first and foremost, we want to give our document a name. I highly encourage our users to be naming the document, so the actual PDF on your computer, to be accurate to the content inside of it. If it's a meeting minute or a board agenda, you can write your entity's name, agenda, date, right? And when it comes to your date, we want to avoid using hyphens. Feel free to use underscores instead. That will just make loading it easier, and the hyphens can always cause certain conflicts as well when it comes to URL pathways. However, I'm going to name this test because I know the document that I always use is called test. It's important that the name you give it in the backend, so in the actual media library, matches the name of the file so that users who use screen readers to navigate through your site and to access these documents know exactly what they're opening up, right? There's no discrepancies between the file and what the file is identified as within the actual website. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my file. Perfect. And when you plug in a PDF, so mine says test_3, that's because I've uploaded this 3 times to the site. So if you upload the same document twice, it's going to let you know and kind of give it a unique name so you don't have that conflict. And you'll also notice that it used an underscore instead of a hyphen. So it's already gonna, use best practice. So that's why underscore is the best. And when you upload your PDF, you can always preview it. I like to preview my PDFs before I upload them because I'm totally paranoid that I'm gonna name it something that it is not. I'm gonna put into the site and it's a completely wrong PDF. So always, it takes a second, open it right up and just see if it's the correct PDF, and you can close it. And essentially, if that's all you needed, you can be done here. However, if we want to kind of remember our SEO, our search on our site, this is where you can add those additional tools to make these documents easier to find. This description is just, if you hover over the link, it'll give you a little pop-up box. This description is what you can use to just dump text so that it will be associated with this file. So if you have a file that has lots of jargon, perhaps maybe some legal lingo, you can kind of put in layman terms in here, or maybe acronyms, things that are commonly associated with that kind of content inside of your PDF, just to make things easier to find. This is totally optional, and if you think the name of your file suffices for your search engine, that's totally okay. However, it's good to get into the practice of being able to describe the document in a way that makes it easier for people to find who maybe, aren't used to working in government and all that jazz. These related tags just allows you to add a hashtag to your content piece to make it easier to find in the back end of the site. So that means that if I have 10,000 documents on the back of my site and I know that I'm looking for something specific and I've tagged it with a specific tag, I don't have to go digging for it. I can always just filter by this test tag, and it's only going to show me things that I have associated that tag to. So it is manual. However, once you set it up once, all you have to do is type in the tag. It will pop up as an option, and it's going to be filed under this node number. And a node is basically a numerical identification that replaces a traditional URL pathway. So lots of internal pages you'll link will be using a node as well. So let's go ahead and hit save on our document. Perfect. And now under related tags, I can filter by test. Click that filter button, and it's only going to show me things that I've used under my test. And we can see that I'm using the same test items quite often. Perfect. And so let's go ahead and talk about images really quick before we move on. When I click on this image button, this looks pretty familiar, right? Just about identical to where we just were. Much like images, I want to give the name to be as close to the file name as possible. So I can't remember the numbers for this specific image, but I always use cannoli. All right, so cannoli is CI, and instead of a hyphen, I'm going to use an underscore here. 4944_3. Perfect. And that will cover me here. However, unlike documents, I'm now presented with an additional step. This step is called alternative text. I'm sure you may have written it before. However, if you have not, this is just a description of the image for visually impaired users who are using screen readers to navigate through the site. And this just allows them to be able to, visualize the image, to take that text and give it, context to what they're viewing on the site that maybe they can't see like you and I can. So for alternative text, context does matter. This is not a dog in action, and I know that this dog is up for adoption. Not anymore, this was a couple years ago, but I know it's up for adoption, so maybe describing the breed of this dog is important. Describing the coat texture of this dog is important, the size even. If there's an image of this dog maybe running around in a field, catching a ball or something like that, it would be more important to describe the action of the dog versus the description of the dog. There's a lot of really great alternative text resources on OIT's website in this accessibility guides section, specifically images here. However, I encourage you to review the entire section if accessibility is a priority for you. Perfect. So for this specific context, I would say that this is a portrait, a large black dog with curly hair. I don't know the breed of cannoli. Oh, Phil, the link for accessible images, I just placed that in the chat. Okay, perfect. You see it. Oops, just knocked my wrist against my desk. Awesome. I don't know the breed of the dog. I assume that it is some kind of mix between an oodle of some kind. Oodle's in there for sure. So I could take a swing and guess. However, maybe it's more important to describe the size of the dog itself because that's something people care about when they adopt dogs. Perfect. And we can kind of call it there. It doesn't have to be super detailed. You don't have to get into the minutia of everything. You don't have to describe whether his nose is wet or dry, or whether he has his left paw a little bit further up than his right paw, or whether or not you can see his eyes or anything like that. We really have to think about how long it takes a screen reader to present this information to somebody, right? So if we're getting way too in the weeds, way too descriptive, then that's not accessible anymore because we are wasting the user's time by going through information that they may not need. This may not be the dog that they're interested in, right? In addition to that, you can add additional descriptions down here to make it easier for people to find this. So if there is additional info about the dog, this would be a good spot to put that in. Alrighty, and one more thing to note about alternative text. Context does matter. If you have a weird one, if you're not entirely sure how to describe it, feel free to send it our way. We're more than happy to go through our resources and give you our best our best advice when it comes to that. However, that accessible images guide should be super helpful. Um, Perfect. Any questions about alternative text? I know this is kind of a funky one, maybe something that we don't run into every day, but are going to start to have to use much more often than we did before. Nope. Alrighty. Um, definitely use OIT as a resource. They even have a customer support line, I believe. So if you do have any questions about stuff like that, I do think they'll be able to help you. And description, same deal, just like our files. If we have additional context about cannoli here that we want to put in to make it easier for people to search. So if he is a poodle mix of some kind, maybe this is the right spot to put that sort of information so that when people search for the site for a specific dog that they want to adopt, that description will be used in that SEO so that it will be displayed to them as a poodle mix available for adoption. And related tags, same deal. Because I've already created that test tag, I now am able to filter internally for this image. And now I can hit save, and it lives in our media library. Any questions about documents or images? So far, so good? Perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit more about content in and of itself. So clicking back on my content module in my content library, I can click this add content button, and it's going to show me all of the things that I can do in content, right? So demo is going to be a little weird. It's going to have some little extra options that maybe are not available on current ones. And that is just because, oh, I'm sorry. I think someone's mic is unmuted. Okay, perfect. So anything that you make within this list is going to end up in your content library. So this is a really good way to kind of remember what's the difference between content and media, is that when I look at this list, I don't see an option to add a document or an image, right? It's only going to be alerts, articles, pages, contacts, events, slides, and layouts. These guys down here are more or less legacy items, so we're not going to focus on them. But we're going to talk about basic pages, we're going to talk about landing pages, and we're going to talk about layouts. Those are really the main tools that are used to build out a site. Let me go ahead and walk it back. A basic page, a landing page, and a layout. So layouts are fairly new to the platform. They're only about a year old, and they certainly have their quirks. So we'll go through layouts, and really the most important thing is that have users leveraging layouts, even if it's just in a sandbox drafted. If there are any issues, they can be flagged and reported so that we can fix them. We are definitely, once accessibility is behind us, even though we're always going to be maintaining it and updating it and all that good stuff, once we are kind of through July, layouts is going to be our next big priority at fine tuning, finalizing, and making sure that they're in just as usable of a state as our basic pages and landing pages. So we definitely want people in there and testing and looking at them and leveraging them. However, to unbookmark that point, we want to look at our basic pages and landing pages because those have traditionally been the only way that sites have been built on. And for the most part, I do think everyone's site here is primarily basic pages and landing pages. So we can kind of think of our basic pages and landing pages as two different things that serve the same function. Landing pages are a lot like home pages. So your own home page on your site is a landing page. It comes out of the box just like that. So you could expect a landing page to maybe look a little different, where a basic page, we're presented with the WYSIWYG editor. That just means what you see is what you get. We may also reference it as the CK editor as well. So it has two names. In our WYSIWYG editor, we can build an entire page with just this guy here. So if we don't need rows and cards, we don't need the option to organize our content, separate out in spaces or anything like that. We mostly just have a page that contains text and maybe a couple of buttons. You can absolutely do everything in here. And we'll talk a little bit about these buttons today as well. However, with a landing page, you are going to have to establish rows and cards. So if we wanted to have a page, maybe our home page, we wanted to have this functionality, what we could do is in our rows, we can go with equal columns, add a new row. And since we only want a big block of text on our landing page, the only card we'll have in this row is a basic card. And we wouldn't add any additional cards because remember, the more cards, the more columns we add to our row, the less space we're going to have to work with, and you're going to have to share that space. And I'm going to also pick on my placeholder text site because this is important. So let's say that we're migrating content either from an email, a Word document, another external site. If we're copying the content, there's a really important step in between copying it and pasting it. That step is that after we've copied it and we're ready to plop it into our text body right here, let's say that we were to just dump it like this. This may look fine on the front end if we aren't, just naturally familiar with what the Drupal text normally looks like, what that font and font size looks like. However, when I click this source button, do you see all of this extra styling? We see background colors, we see font colors, we see font sizes, we have web kits in here. This is a really easy way to get tripped up because we're conflicting with the style that is native to the Drupal platform, right? And it's not going to know what the right version of this text is to display to users. This is an easy way to get, and also it's extremely easy to fix. So if we wanted to fix this and remove all of this extra styling and just keep it as what's called plain text, what we will want to do is I'm going to just add a new space, and on my keyboard, I'm going to hold Control and Shift, and if you're on a Mac, it's going to be Command and Shift. So we're holding these two buttons, and then we're tapping V as in Victor. Oops. It is not cooperating with me. There we go. And it may be hard to tell at first, right? And maybe I can zoom in a little bit for everybody. But the size and font definitely look a little bit different, right? This is a little bit more round, while this is a little bit more soft. And when I click on this source code, do you see all of that style in our first paragraph? It's not here in the second paragraph, and I copied the exact same string of text. This is what's called plain text. So in between these paragraph breaks right here, this is that piece of text, and it doesn't have any of that style. So definitely be careful if we're moving content from emails, Word documents, old websites, that we are kind of doing our due diligence here, cleaning up all the junk that we don't need and just pasting it as plain text. If you are not comfortable with keyboard shortcuts and you just prefer using the right-click mouse menu, and real quick, I'm just popping this into the chat. You will also commonly hear this referred to as stripping formatting as well. Perfect. You can also right-click in the space and right here paste as plain text. And this will do the exact same thing. So if you're not a keyboard shortcut person, you prefer to click, you can also paste just like that. Excuse me, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold. And perfect. So we definitely want to make sure that that is what we're leveraging. Fabulous. And so if I were to repeat these same steps and just drop that text into here and save both of these, and remember, we want to give all of our pages a title. So I'm going to call this test 1. I'm going to call this test 2. I'm going to save both of them, and I'm also going to zoom out just for me. Now we can see that we've kind of achieved the same thing. This is our basic page. And this is our landing page where it's going to take up that entire space. So just in case if you needed something like that on your landing page, that's how you would achieve that thing. All right. So let me go ahead and walk it back. And one more difference that I really wanted to point out as a main difference between basic pages and landing pages is that landing pages have something called hero rows. Hero just means that we can add a background image to our row. This isn't available on basic pages and is unique to landing pages. So, and those dimensions are going to follow the same dimensions as the Jumbotron. So you want to make sure that you're using an image that is 450 pixels height by, or you could be a little bit more flexible with the height. Just recognize that if the content isn't tall enough, it's going to get cut off. However, that 2115 number is still going to apply to your hero rows. Additionally, we may also know an extra tab right? So what's the difference between our basic page and our landing page here? Is the Jumbotron. So if you are wanting to leverage the Jumbotron, it has to be on a landing page, and the correct option is refer sliders, and you would choose from the sliders you've created. We won't have time to cover the Jumbotron today. However, if you do want a crash course, a little 15, 30-minute walkthrough on how to set that up, feel free to submit a ticket to partner support. We'll squeeze you into one of our schedules, and then we'll go through how to manage that Jumbotron. But if you want that big sliding image, those carousel of images, you will be leveraging the landing page for that. The main difference is that refer sliders is the one that works. So the sliders are going to be a content piece that you create first and then reference within the Jumbotron. And sorry, if the question that Phil asked was, what's the difference between Jumbotron now and refer sliders? Refer sliders is just the correct option. The difference is in the minutia, if I'm being honest. It's just the one that is accessible, the one that is designed to work in the current version of Drupal. A lot of these are legacy from older versions of Drupal and are still there to make sure that they are still supported by older sites who may not have made the jump to refer sliders. But refer sliders is always going to be a thumbs up. That's going to be the one we want to use. Perfect. And other than that, these pages are going to be just about the same. To add rows, you're going to add your rows here. You can add equal columns. However, if you don't like the equal columns, you don't like that no matter how many columns you establish within this row, they're always going to share an equal amount of space, getting smaller and smaller the more content you add in them. You can opt for uneven columns instead. This just allows you to have a little bit more control over the spacing within your row. However, you are limited to 3 or 2 columns. So that means 3 cards or 2 cards on your row. So you're limited to the amount of content you can use. However, you have more control over the space the content uses. So I highly encourage everyone today, if you are brand new to your site or if you're just getting back into it, create a drafted sandbox page and play around with these column types and see which you prefer. Best way to learn is by doing. That's definitely my opinion on it. Perfect. Any questions about basic pages or landing pages or the rows inside of them? Not so far? Perfect. Alrighty, and we're going to talk about layouts last and foremost because that's what we want people to kind of be in and doing. We know they have their quirks and their bugs, so the more we get reports on them, the faster we can kind of expedite this process. However, when we are creating a layout, much like our pages, we want to give it a title. So I'm going to call this my sandbox layout. Perfect. And your featured image is a lot like your Jumbotron, except you can only have one at a time. The dimensions will be the same. So it's not going to carousel, but it will be a banner image for your page if you choose to use one. And much like our basic pages, we can kind of create a whole layout just with this. So if you don't have a need to organize your content with columns and rows, you can kind of dump text into here. So to talk about what we can do with these buttons inside of our CK editor, inside of our WYSIWYG, the main ones I want to talk about is getting media in here, getting accordions in here, and linking content. So just to get started, let's say that we want to take a piece of text like so. So we're going to click and highlight it, and we want to link it up to that test PDF that we just uploaded. I'm going to zoom in, actually. Perfect. And I'm going to click this link button right here. Sorry, my cat's making a ruckus, so if I just wanted to make sure that she wasn't doing anything. The system is smart enough where I can just type in the name of what I'm looking for, and it's going to give me all of the content. So that's going to be pages, content pieces, the stuff you would find in your content library, right? However, I'm not looking for content. I'm looking for files. So if I'm ready to upload my PDF and make it clickable, I'm going to search in this file section right here. And I'm going to look, and there are all of my test PDFs that I've uploaded before. And do you see this .pdf right here? This is how we know that we're correctly uploading this particular item. You can see that there's media options for these test documents. However, linking directly to the PDF is the correct way to do this. So I'm going to use test number 3 because that's the one I uploaded today. So we have sites, demos, files, documents, test. That all checks out. Sites is just saying it's on a website. Demo is the domain for our website, demo.colorado.gov. It is a file, it is specifically a document, and then it has the name of the document. So that's how we can kind of go through our checklist and make sure that this is the correct pathway for our link. So I'm going to click this green check mark, and it's successfully linked. What do I do if I want to link an internal page, right? If I wanted to link an external page, I would just paste the link in here, click that green check mark, and call it a day. However, if I wanted to link to a test page, perhaps, I know I have a bunch of test pages in here, I would simply type in test and I would find the content. So maybe I'm going to link to this previous layout that I've built. I'm going to click on that. And this looks a little bit different. You may have heard me mention nodes earlier when we were talking about our documents. Remember, nodes are a 4 to 6 digit number that is kind of a numerical identifier for a piece of content that replaces a URL pathway. This is super duper important. If your URL changes, that's going to change your URL pathway. If your site is being migrated from the test environment to the production environment, if you have an active full support project, that's also going to change. So when you're linking internal pages, we want to make sure we are using our nodes. And nodes are so easy that I just have to type in the name of the page, find the page I want to use, and it's already going to load up that node for me. Oops. And demo is going to be a little fussy. It'll be smoother for you. Perfect. I'm going to click that save button. And that's how we'll link stuff within the site. And real quick, just touching on media, when we want to place an image within our CK editor, we're going to click the music note button. So you can see that there is one with an arrow and one with a music note. We want to use the music note. Excuse me. And I'm just going to find my cannoli image that I placed in here today. So that's why I like to upload my documents and photos first before I make changes to a page or create a new page that I know is going to leverage that particular content. Because everything about Drupal is about referencing pieces of content, right? So because I've already done my due diligence, I can now reuse these images and documents all over without having to re-upload them from my computer every single time. So I'm going to click on cannoli. I'm going to insert selected. And the system is smart enough to kind of say, hey, this image is huge. Let me go ahead and thumbnail it for you. A thumbnail, also known as a small media render, is going to take an image and squish it down. This is important for load times on your site. So if you have lots of large images on a particular page, you may notice that that page loads a little bit slower than the other pages on your site. It just kind of helps out the efficiency of how your site runs. However, if it's the only image on your page and you want it to be front and center, we can change this to full content. And you can see why it got thumbnailed, right? This is a pretty large image. And it's going to just restore it to its original size. I'm going to keep it as a small render. And over here on the right, you can orient where the image lays within the actual text. Perfect. And if I'm ready to add text underneath my image, I can click these enter keys, these little enter buttons. And, sorry, still getting over something, I got a little bit frog in my throat. And this will let us enter more text underneath the image. Underneath, I'm going to stick accordions. Accordions are a really great way to take lots of content and make sure that they can fold up into a nice, neat space. So it looks like a little staircase. this accordion button. When you click on it, you get one to start off with. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And just to show you what a completed accordion looks like, we are going to look at our complete list of websites. And so hopefully this will give you a better idea of what we're looking at. These, like I mentioned, can take a whole lot of content and squish them down so that it's optional to view all that content, right? So your site's not taking a long time to load and populate this. It's kind of containing it. And so if someone opts to look at the content, it will then load it up for you. It improves the efficiency on your website. It also is, cleans it up a little bit aesthetically. So that would be the general purpose for your accordions. So just scooching back on over to layouts, that title is going to be what's in this blue bar here, and you can't change the color of accordions, just an FYI. They are going to be blue. That functionality may return once we're able to kind of nail down the accessibility of it, particularly the color contrast within accordions. We have a ticket for that, and if that's something you're looking for, you can always make that request. However, it's a little bit low on the priority line right now. However, the more people request it, it gets bumped up. Alrighty. So just going back to my layout, we're going to write test in here, and then we can see that we can add tons and tons and tons and tons of content into our accordions. I, however, am just going to place a little bit of text for the sake of time, and we may be over 5 minutes today. So if you need to leave right at 11, no worries. We'll have another one of these, but if you want to stick around, absolutely do so. So those are what I view as some of the most important buttons within our WYSIWYG editor. I'm going to go ahead and hit save on this guy. And now it's going to show me my drafted layout. So this looks a lot like a page already, right? If I wanted to make additional changes to my layout, if I want to start adding columns and sections to my layout, I would click layout, not edit. Edit is just going to just let you edit that CK editor stuff again. Layout's actually going to bring us to the real meat and potatoes of it. So we can see here that this section is already kind of claimed for itself. You can add additional blocks to this section, and I am going to zoom out here, I think. There we go. All right, so and this block means that if I were to add another content piece, it's going to stretch and it's going to be the same length as our accordion, our text up here as well. However, maybe we want a new section with columns in it. So I'm going to click this add section button, and now unlike rows or equal columns where, it's determined by the content that already exists inside of them, I can make this determination beforehand. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds between equal columns and uneven columns. And I'm going to choose 3 columns today. You can change how large or how much space each column takes up here. We're definitely aware of the color contrast issue here. This will be resolved when we start looking at layouts, and this is in particular with accessibility. So no worries, we're aware of this particular issue, but I can, change the widths here. And what's nice about this that is not present within rows and cards is that I can change these column widths whenever I want. So I don't have to completely delete the content inside of the section to adjust the widths. I can do it however many times that pleases me. So I'm going to go ahead and add that section. And now you can see that I chose 25%, 50%, 25%. So this is just how I've decided to section off my content. And to add blocks, these are just like cards. So a simple block, that guy looks familiar, right? We've seen him a few times already today. This is the CK editor again. This just lets you place a text box in your page. If you're looking for different content types, you will find them in the content blocks here. Basic block is the same as our simple block. It's going to be that text editor once more. An icon block is like a button. Media will be accessing your media library, so that's going to be in particular your images. Open embed, that's where you would place your YouTube videos. Simple maps is going to be a Google map pin. Slider is going to be like a mini jumbotron, and views reference is going to be where you use your calendars and your I apologize, your articles. So that's how you would add specific pieces of content to your layout. And what's nice, and just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and just add a simple block just so we have it. Simple block, just adding my text. I'm hitting save. You will have to give a title to these things, but you'll see that the title is not visible here. I'm going to add another block, but instead I'm going to choose a content block instead. And let's go ahead and use the media block. We're going to give it a title. I'm going to call it cannoli. I feel like I spelled that wrong. I'll let it go. And then I can unselect this to not display the title. So if you don't want the title to be shown, you can always opt out of it. Clicking add media here is going to give us a media library again. Another instance on why we kind of front load that effort before we make changes to our site. I'm going to insert this guy. You can add background colors, borders, or shadows to any section or block within your layout. I'm going to go ahead and add this guy. And now my little reference is right there. And adding one more block here, content. I'm just going to use the maps. And the maps is super, super easy. You can add text. It is totally optional. You can add a title, also totally optional. What isn't optional is obviously an address. I'm just going to use our Denver offices. Perfect. And that's going to be 1999 Broadway. And the system is really smart. Google's pretty smart. It's going to take exactly what I have here and apply it. And I'm going to add that block. And now I'm not going to be able to drag it around while it's in this preview mode, but now I have that pin. So if you have a physical office for people to come in and visit, you can absolutely add a pin and make it easier for people to find. So I'm going to hit save on this guy. Perfect. And now we have our cards and our blocks, our accordions, our text up here, some links. That kind of covers everything that I wanted to go over today. Very basic, simple stuff, but hopefully enough to kind of get you started. I have time for a couple of questions. Do we have any? Yes, Michael? Your microphone may not be working. I can see you're unmuted, but I don't think we can hear you. You can also type in the question as well. And while Michael's writing that out, does anyone else have any questions? Nope. Okay. How do you get to accordions? Absolutely. So it's going to be in our CK editor, our WYSIWYG editor, which is just that basic text editor. And it's this button that looks like a staircase almost, or I think it looks like a staircase. And it sits right next to our table. It's this guy right here. And you get one to start off with, but if you ever need more accordions, you can click in here as if you're going to edit the text inside and insert a row above or below or delete the row. Perfect. Awesome. Oh, sorry, Kelly, not Michael. I apologize, Kelly. So hopefully that will help. Michael, are you able to type your question or no more question then? Oh, there we go. Okay. With filters. Well, hopefully I know what a curtain looks like. Does that count? I'm not going to count it. Okay. This guy? Okay. This is called a resource search. This is something I would submit a ticket to partner support for, or bring it to the advanced user Q&A on the 23rd. And they would be more than happy to help you walk through what this would look like to implement on your site. This is definitely outside of the basic training scope and is kind of a unique offering. So I would absolutely present it at that particular Q&A or submit a partner support ticket to research that for you. But unfortunately, that's not something I would be able to demo today. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I apologize. It's definitely a more advanced offering than what we would handle today. Alrighty, I don't think anyone else had any questions. If you do, please write them in the chat. We did go a little bit over. I appreciate everyone's patience today as we are kind of, finding our new footing with the new trainings. Your feedback is always welcome. And remember, if you do want to attend the open forum Q&A for advanced users, that will be on the 23rd. Our next basic training is going to be on May 14th. So if you want another refresher, absolutely. And you can expect to see that this particular recording for this training is going to be available by the end of the day on Friday. To increase permissions, it depends on the permissions that you're looking for. I would submit that to partner support and describe the permissions you're looking for. And then we can handle it from there. And that partner support link is, let me go ahead and pop that in the chat. So give us the URL for your site. Give us what you're looking to do, what permissions you're looking for. If you're looking for the permissions that I have, that would not be available. The maximum permissions that you can get as a user is user admin to manage users on your site, content admin to, access as much as the content admin materials as you can, structure admin for your menus and your footers, and then that's essentially it. That's the highest level of permissions that you can have. So if you already have those 3 permissions, then you're already set with the highest level that's going to be available to you. But it doesn't hurt to, ask a question, send in a ticket, and see if we're kind of on the same wavelength there. But yeah, absolutely reach out. However, if you do already have those 3 permissions, you probably already have the highest that we can give you. Alrighty. I'm going to call this one for today. You'll see this recording on the website on the 9th, and our next basic training is going to be on May 14th, and the next Q&A is going to be on April 23rd. So I look forward to seeing y'all there. I look forward to seeing y'all in our next basic training, and I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your day.
Thank you.
Of course, have a good one.